So this is exciting news. We have Nicole Auerbach with us. She'll be with us every Monday, we hope, and you can catch her at The Athletic, but also SiriusXM, ESPNU channel, Wednesday through Friday. She's busy. She knows college ball as good as anybody, and we're excited to have her on. Nicole, how are you?
I am great and very excited to hang out and talk college football all season with you.
Yeah, it's like a blind, like I was just saying, college football is like a little bit like of a blind spot. I have to hang out with my family one day of the week during the football season, and Saturday it is. So, like I'm with the kids when most of these games are going on, and I have like a lot of blind spots in college football. I like getting downloaded on what the hell happened as we go into the next week. So I guess my first question would be, everybody's talking about Georgia. To me, as like a casual in college football, relatively speaking, I see Georgia play and I say, here we go again. It's Georgia and like everybody else. I mean, Bama looks a little bit down. Would that be accurate? And what changed for this offense? Because people are like, oh, it's just different. So tell me why it's different.
Yeah, so I do think right now it's probably them and everybody else, because everybody else seems flawed, or we don't really know. Like Alabama was not the better team when they played Texas, should not have won that game. It took Bryce Young heroics to win it. And Bryce Young is going to win them a lot of games. So they've got some issues, though. They don't have that like NFL first round receiver that we're just so used to seeing. And that's clearly made a huge difference. It made a difference in the title game last year, too. With Georgia, though, I think they've been much more fun and aesthetically pleasing to watch. And that is a departure for their offense. I mean, when Kirby Smart first got to Georgia, he was totally comfortable winning a game by just running it between the tackles, and then great defense. Like he would have been fine winning those 9-3 games. Right. But it has shifted. Todd Monken got there in 2020, and you've started to see different things open up. I mean, Georgia piled on points on teams last year, but everyone was basically saying still that Stetson Bennett was a game manager. It wasn't quite people didn't fully buy in. But I think if you just watch how they've played the last couple of weeks, they're clearly trying to make a point that they can score basically at will. They've scored so many touchdowns when they've had these possessions. And based on now what we're seeing out of Oregon, I think it's only boosting how we feel about Georgia's offense because of how many scoring drives they had against the Ducks early. But I think a good example would be Brock Bowers is a focal point. Everyone's like, oh, Georgia uses their tight ends. But the way that they used Brock Bowers against South Carolina was really fun. They had him take an end around on a reverse and score that way. They're doing stuff where it's clear that it's fun for the players to be part of. And it's not all trick plays, but it's just fun routes to run. And Stetson Bennett's throwing to a bunch of different guys. It's not just one or two. It's not they're just handing the ball off. It's more interesting and much more explosive than I think people give them credit for because of how they were for so long when Kirby Smart first got there and with his defensive background.
Is Stetson Bennett a top 3 Heisman candidate, or where does he sit for you right now?
Yeah, I think he's going to be. We just started our straw poll over at The Athletic, and this is going to be the week where there's probably 30 names because we haven't started doing it. So no one's coalesced. But yeah, I mean, I put him in mine. I think absolutely his numbers are going to be there this season. And if we think that they're head and shoulders above everybody else, then he's for sure going to be in New York.
Can anybody compete with this team outside of your usuals? Does anybody give them a matchup problem anywhere on the field that you got to be concerned about? Is there one game you circle that people aren't circling?
I mean, I don't think so. Yeah. They just totally demolished a conference opponent that went to a bowl game last week. I get that there's a huge gap with them and where South Carolina is right now, but it's hard to imagine it. And even again, with Alabama, the version of Alabama we saw against Texas, it's hard to envision, them really pushing Georgia, but that's how we felt about it last year. And then they beat them in the SEC champ game. So I don't know. It feels like we are poised for, this is all you really need to know about college football so far. It feels like it is a chaos season that is upon us. Yeah. So I guess you can never say never, but it also feels like this might be the only sure team that I feel that way about for the regular season.
Okay, Kentucky's on the schedule, right? I mean, like Kentucky, you had them in your top 10. I love seeing Kentucky playing well, Kentucky being relevant in college football. It's just fun, and I wonder if it's sustainable for them because it feels like they're in a kind of like a tweener spot in the SEC. It doesn't feel like they're a blue blood SEC kind of team, and this is a new thing. So can they hang around here?
I think so. I mean, this was their highest ranking in the preseason in a very long time, if not ever. Expectations have been really high. The way that they beat Florida, the way that they have been able to beat Florida shows that it is sustainable. I mean, like what Mark Stoops is doing, I first off don't think every coach should be able to do it, but it's something that is carrying over year in and year out. Like the defense, the physicality of the defense, like how annoying they are to play is there year to year. Will Levis has been great. He was the Penn State transfer. He's really opened up some stuff.
Coffee.
Yes, and he's the one who ate the banana with the peel. He's got some weird.
He's out there. These are concerns for me at the next level. But go on.
Yeah, I would love to hear when we get to like anonymous draft season, anonymous scout draft season, if someone takes on his food. But yeah, like. I do think that this is like a lot of people like to say that Mark Stoops has the best job in college football because the expectations are low/realistic.
Yeah.
And I think that allows you to build, it allows you to get to this point, and then it does feel like it is sustainable. I don't know what that next level would be. I mean, like Kentucky's not going to be winning the SEC. Can they contend in the East sometimes? Like that feels doable.
Right.
But this is the first season that we're really like seeing them facing this type of expectation. And it'll be interesting to see, like, obviously they're going to factor into how the East is won, but can they contend? I don't know. I mean, it's just going to be interesting. Tennessee is also like kind of emerging in an interesting place with Josh Heupel. So I think we'll learn a lot about Kentucky this season and what is sustainable, but the defense, the fact that they're sending guys to the NFL, there's a lot that I think just continues to carry over in what Mark Stoops is building.
Yeah. You mentioned Tennessee. I feel like Tennessee's close to being, how everybody does the, are they back thing? Like Tennessee feels more back than almost anybody. Like I thought Texas was back and then like Texas didn't look as good this weekend. So that's exciting. I've never been to Knoxville. I've never caught a game there. I really want to go see a game there this year, but Greenlight Crew, we might go to App State this weekend because one of our producers is a JMU guy.
Yes.
And I really want to go to Boone. I heard
Saturday,
Saturday night it had to be insane. So 2 places on my list, Boone and Knoxville. How about, is there a top 10 team that's less tested than Michigan? Like they haven't played anybody and they scored 50 plus points in all their games. Poor Hawaii had to fly all the way to Ann Arbor to get that ass kicking. Like what's going on with Michigan and what do we need to know about them?
So absolutely correct. The non-conference has been very, very light. It has been so light to the point that like it's been hard to watch past the first quarter in some of these games because they've jumped on these teams early and they've taken care of business. And so like, again, as much as the opponent has been bad, I mean, I do think they've done exactly what you should be doing to a bad opponent. I think because the schedule was set up the way that it was, it allowed Jim Harbaugh to do what he did with the quarterback situation. And because I think if you play like Iowa right out of the gate and not October 1st, I don't think you can. I think you would just stay with Cade McNamara. He won you all these big games last year. So I think that's the silver lining that Michigan fans have to take in the schedule, and also just building confidence, all those things. But like JJ McCarthy has not really been challenged. He has been basically perfect since taking over this job. I think everyone has seen why he got the job. Like we watched it all play out and we saw like he was clearly better. The ceiling is higher. But the question is like, so they'll be going up against Maryland. And then I think it's Iowa. I think that's the game that we're going to learn something about Michigan. Michigan has been, like so many other Big Ten teams, it's been a house of horrors in Kinnick. Like it's a really hard place to play. Iowa's got 2 phases that are really, really good. One that is not, and defense is one of them. And so like that will be a good test. Maryland, I think this game could turn into a shootout. it'll still be more challenging than what they've been doing.
Right.
But I think we're going to still take another 2 weeks until we actually learn about Michigan. But I mean, I think they're better than I thought they were going to be based on everyone who left to go to the NFL.
Yeah, you had them in, I guess, your top 5. Is that correct? It was Michigan in top 5.
Yes, but here's the thing, Chris. Like, you have to have rankings below 1, and it's very, very hard.
It is hard. Yeah, it's like we know who's number 1, but I don't know much else, and like especially because your schedule is just that. This schedule is so different than some other team in the top 10. It's impossible to tell,
right.
And this is why I think it's so interesting because you're not going to know for a couple weeks, and even after an Iowa game, you might say, "I don't know enough." We don't know like how bad Iowa can be. Maybe we're just scratching the surface.
Listen, some of us stayed up until like 3 a.m. or whenever that game ended on Saturday night. The idea of Iowa after dark before dawn was too compelling.
That is a lot. That is a lot. I think that actually hurt your REM sleep. Like if you had an Aura ring or a Whoop on, it probably was like, man, you slept fucked up. Did you watch Iowa last night?
I have an Aura ring, and I can tell you, it went straight into deep sleep.
Oh, it did? Okay, so it actually, it's like melatonin. Okay. Just run back some Iowa tape. All right. And then lastly, I mean, with Notre Dame, is this something that you saw coming? I don't know if there was a game that felt, other than Virginia beating ODU after the game, interviewing Tony Elliott, it doesn't feel like a win. Marcus Freeman after that game, it's supposed to be this first win as a Notre Dame coach. It's at home, like it's momentous, and it was hard to muster any enthusiasm after that Cal game. Did you see it coming?
Yeah, well, and also like the way that the Hail Mary was at the end, like it just almost didn't, it got dicier than it really even should have after all of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I saw this coming. I think that this was a hire that was very much lauded because of how Brian Kelly left, and he was so beloved. The players obviously wanted him to get the job. Everyone who has ever worked with Marcus Freeman impressed by him. But like there were some semi-red flags. I mean, like I had talked to other coaches who had them on the schedule and had looked at them entering the year, and they were concerned about the offensive line. Like they were like, they have size, but can they move? What are they going to look like? At quarterback, like what is the ceiling at that position? And it turns out like it was limited. Even when Tyler Buckner was healthy, like it was still that ceiling and the cap on what that position was able to do. And what the offense was, because when Tyler Buckner was healthy, it was basically just him scrambling. And they have a great tight end. They have probably maybe the best tight end in the country, but like their offense of just trying to throw it to your tight end is not going to win you a lot of games. So like I think we knew they were young. We knew that they were going to have some issues at some spots, but I think no one would have predicted it start out this poorly. And I think also some of the ways that the games went where they played well in the first half and things fell apart in the bowl game, or like even against Ohio State, they had the lead at the half, and just like some of the ways that the game unfolded, like you definitely feel like this is a brand new head coach, but it's definitely been dicier than people think. I don't think there's really, like, I think everyone's still bought in. Everyone still thinks he's the right coach, but you definitely don't have whatever that honeymoon is, or, the slack that people typically give a first year head coach. You don't have that. People are nervous and tense in that fan base. And even pointing out like what Brian Kelly's early losses, some of the ones, but it's like he inherited the Notre Dame program in a different place than Marcus Freeman did off a team that like almost made the playoff last year. Like this should not be happening. And so I just think that fan base, that place, South Bend, is just in a very like uncomfortable position because everyone is trying to will things to get better. And we'll see with Drew Pine. But I think, again, the limiting factor being your quarterback is not a great place to be.
Yeah, tough. And I got a buddy on that staff, James Laurinaitis. I hope things turn around for them. Everybody wants Marcus Freeman to do well as one of those hires. But, they gotta prove it out. Nicole, appreciate the time. We'll catch you next week. And hopefully this weekend's slate will be a little bit better. It was just me, but I wasn't that jazzed about it. And we got to play Syracuse at Virginia. Are we going to beat Syracuse?
Okay, Syracuse is way better.
Okay,
they are way better this year.
I know. I've been winning money on them inexplicably. I had the over this weekend, the 42-point fourth quarter. I know I'm kind of scared. So, Nicole, catch you next week. Thanks so much for coming on. Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.